Today's conversation is for the woman who is capable, trusted, and outwardly successful, but really actually quite exhausted as well. My guest today is Cindy Norcott. Cindy has spent decades working with high-performing women across business, leadership, and personal development, and she's seen this pattern again and again. Women are not lacking confidence or competence, but are carrying leadership without being taught self-leadership. In this episode, we're talking about the double bind women face in leadership, why presence and authority matter more than performance, and how women can lead without hardening, overfunctioning, or losing themselves in the process. This is a conversation about reclaiming authority, setting boundaries without guilt, and lifting the invisible lid that keeps so many women capable but capped. Let's begin. Cindy, so wonderful to have you on the podcast today.
It's wonderful to be here. Thank you so much.
Cindy, I'd love to know a little bit more about you before we get started and how your career has come to where it is today. You've done so much. You've just launched your third book.
I have.
That's
yes,
incredible.
It's called The Weight of Hope. If I go back a little bit, a wife to Steve, and I'm a mom to 2 girls. I own a recruitment company, which I've had for 32 years. I also started the Robin Hood Foundation 20 years ago. Up until December, I was the chairperson for 20 years. I do a lot of motivational speaking. I do some business coaching as well. My real area of passion is actually women in business. Yes, it's an area that I'm fascinated by. I've probably experienced every single struggle, trying to help other women with. Yes, that's pretty much about me. I love exercise. I love travel. I love reading. I love animals. Yeah, I have a big network of female friends. The sisterhood is strong. Yeah.
That's so fantastic. It sounds like you have a really beautifully balanced life.
I don't know if it's always balanced. It's often feels crammed. It often feels like putting a lot of everything into it. And so on the surface, it looks like it's so balanced, but often I'm rushing in between things. Often I'm not present when doing the things I love or when I'm with the people I love, and often feel like that high performance anxiety and that sense of, I don't know how I'm going to cope today, even though I'm the one running my diary. Isn't that crazy?
It is crazy. It's completely self-imposing,
Exactly.
right? But I mean,
Yeah.
we have these expectations that we set on ourselves.
Yeah.
And so many of us do it. It's crazy how we put this pressure on ourselves. And for what? Why do you think so many women do this, including yourself? I know it's quite hard to maybe self-reflect on a podcast right now, but perhaps you coach women. So maybe you're seeing a pattern here of some sort that this is why we're doing this to ourselves.
Absolutely. And I mean, I can speak for myself as well. So number one, it's poor boundaries. A lot of women are socialized as young girls to be acquiescent, to be nice, to be good, to say yes, to really sort of just be pleasant, be a good girl. If I look at my own career, I'm definitely a people pleaser. I wish I weren't. I wish I could say I've got the biggest backbone and I know all my boundaries and I know when to say yes, when to say no. I think a lot of what people deem to be success that I've achieved has come on the back of being a people pleaser, always being kind and nice, and often to the expense of myself and my family. And a lot of women do struggle with that. You're already approaching a day where you are redlining, your diary is full, and then your boss says, can you do this? The default setting is there, and that neural pathway is so ingrained that the first thing that comes out is, of course, yes, I will do it. The thought of saying no is like a foreign. For me, what I've realized, that seems to be like one of the biggest laments of each year. When I reflect on a year, I go, what was I not proud of? What would I change? And it's, why did I say so many weak yeses when I should have said some very, very strong no's? Why did I not prioritize the people I value the most? Why did I give so much time and energy to people and things that were not even part of what I value? So for a lot of us as women in leadership, we often are unintentional. We're caught in those default settings of just being the yes person or the go-to person. Also, I'm a little bit of a chrono optimist. I happily underestimate how long anything takes. So if somebody says, can you just? Yes. Oh, it's only 5 minutes. Yeah. And very seldom have I done a favor for somebody that only took 5 minutes. So just also, an important thing that I've realized is energy management. Often you might have the time, but you honestly just need to relax, to fill your cup and be. And I find that from a lot of my career, running my own business for 32 years. I've kind of been that person always, no problem, I'll do it. Actually, if you look at my predictive text, after no is problem.
Yeah.
No problem. Everything's no problem. And it's something that I'm really trying to work on this year, is to just focus on who's important, focus on what is important to me, and the clarity of focus is important. So for many of us women, we don't prioritize that as a starting point to go, what does 2026 look like, for instance? How do I show up? What are my key goals? And something I've realized is I have to become comfortable upsetting other people in order to further my goals. And I don't think it's selfish, it's self-care.
Absolutely. And I love that you're so honest about this as well, because women hold a lot of shame about having needs.
Yes. Yeah.
And about actually saying no and actually saying, I can't do it today. Just because you have time doesn't mean you should be filling it with something. And I'm really glad that you're being honest about that, because if anyone looked at your Facebook account or anything like that, they'd be like, this woman is unstoppable. You know? I mean, that's the name of your book. Was that your first book?
It was my first book, yeah.
Because you really do seem unstoppable.
Yeah.
You know, it's like this never-ending energy, and you probably do have a lot of energy. So you're probably stacking a lot of stuff in there. But those boundaries are so important, and it's come up a lot for us in these interviews. It's always boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. I really like what you said about women needing to be kind, needing to be the go-to person, to always say yes. Yeah. To be likable. Yeah. And one of my questions to you was, the qualities of a leader are generally very masculine qualities. Yeah. Assertiveness, for example. Yeah. Whereas women, we're expected to always be likable. Yeah. There's this really big gap between what people think a leader should be and who women naturally are. How do we close that gap? Because I feel a lot of women are trying to be something that they're not, to fit into this mold. Do you think that's probably why we're burning out?
You're absolutely spot on. There are a lot of women who are trying to perform, trying to be somebody they're not in leadership. So one thing I've realized about leadership is the best thing I can do as a leader is to be myself, is to actually accept myself and go, understand my strengths, understand my weaknesses, to do the work on myself, to find those blind spots, to get feedback. It's so uncomfortable. It's often not very pleasant as well to get feedback like that. But then to kind of sit in that space and go, this is who I am. So what a lot of women try to do is to sort of adopt those masculine traits. But it's almost like, if I wanted to be more like you, all I could end up doing is being a fake version of you, whereas the best thing would be to be the best version of flawed me. So the best leaders are self-aware and they are comfortable in their skin, because by doing that, they don't have to pose, they don't have to pretend, and they don't have to act. So if you're living in the presence of somebody who's completely vulnerable and authentic and comfortable in their skin, they give you permission to be the same. We often go into workplaces where everyone feels like they've got an act going on, or they're trying to emphasize certain behavior. So the old-fashioned view of leadership was always that men had it right, that men are naturally more direct, maybe a little bit more assertive, a lot more self-confident. Boys are socialized to ask for what they want and win. Girls aren't really socialized to be the winner. They're supposed to be more kind than the winner, and boys are out to win. And that behavior, or that sort of kind of posture is rewarded in the workplace. I've worked predominantly in women-focused businesses, so I haven't really had that a lot where women are trying to be more masculine, but you can see it. You can see it in general in society. And I work with a lot of corporates where it's a really big problem, where women feel that if they don't show up like the men do, they're not going to be taken seriously. And they feel that they've almost got to hide some of their great strengths, which are compassion, which are kindness, which are relational, and be a little bit more direct, a little bit more hard. So honestly, don't think the magic happens in pretense. Sometimes if somebody is too quiet and they don't speak up, they might need to elevate that. But if you're not an aggressive person, don't be aggressive. You can be persuasive. There's different ways of showing up.
What I'm hearing you say is authenticity.
Yeah.
No, really just getting down to who you are and making you more you.
Yes.
Really,
Yes,
and making
yes.
that shine. We don't need 100 of the same people.
Exactly.
We need what your unique qualities are. There needs to be a lot of confidence that comes with that to be able to actually bring yourself out. And especially as someone that's gone into a business that's very new and young, that hasn't quite got that confidence yet. Do you have any tools that they can use that to help themselves gain that confidence? Because I would say confidence is something that needs to be practiced. It doesn't just come overnight, So what tools would you give someone to just have a little bit more confidence when they go to work?
That's such a good question, because if I look back to, say, when I was 25, I was not confident. I bumbled along. And I look at all the mistakes I made, and sure, I could have done with a lot more self-confidence. So to me, self-confidence is a muscle. How we grow that, in my opinion, is by doing the hard things. It's by sort of facing fear and doing it anyway, and doing it often. So I would encourage people to start creating their own portfolio of evidence for themselves, not for the world to see, but to say, okay, today I'm going to speak up in the meeting. Or I'm going to speak first, there's a lot of different things, but it's also, do I put myself across as somebody of gravitas and confidence? So is there a way that I can present myself more? So maybe it's in how I dress, maybe it's in the way I speak, or it's in my body language. So for an example, if we are nervous, we will touch our hair, we'll fidget, we'll move our legs, we'll tap a pen or whatever it is. And they've done research on CEOs. The most powerful person in the room makes the fewest moves. So a lot of the times I've watched women in boardrooms or women in where they're standing up to speak, and there's a lot of self-deprecating gestures that they make unwittingly, unconsciously. So maybe to even look at how I'm presenting myself, what words do I use? So I'll give you an example. I once did a motivational talk to a group of women who are nail technicians. So I walked into the room and I said, it's so wonderful to be in the presence of so many business owners. They all started laughing, because they did not see themselves as business owners. They saw themselves as nail technicians. And I've often been introduced to people who are in senior roles and they go in finance. Meanwhile, they are the financial director. Yeah. So a man who is the financial director will tell you, a woman might not do that. And sometimes we need to own our space. We need to show up and intentionally show up. So own the gravitas. If you are leading a group of people, walk in as the leader. Just own that space.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You said when people get on, there was a certain somebody that was talking, and you said there's certain gestures that make them look nervous.
Yes.
What are those gestures?
So for me, a lot of women play with their hair. They flick their hair and it doesn't give a good impression. So even if your hair is out of place, try not to smooth it too often or
don't touch
play
it.
with it. And a lot of women touch their faces a lot. So they'll and there's this belief in body language that if you touch your nose or you cover your mouth, you're lying. So it minimizes the impact of what you're saying if you are doing that uneven body distribution. So if you hold a shoulder up or you shrug or something like that, it kind of minimizes what you're saying. And the words we use. So I'll meet a woman and I'll say, what do you do? Say at an event, and they go, I'm just a housewife, or I have a small business. And why do we do that? I manage a busy household. I support my husband's business. I have an enterprise that I'm really excited about. So, and that's not lying. It's just the posture.
You're reframing it in a more positive way. It's not a lie.
Exactly. And saying it as you want it to be. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I loved what you said about getting a portfolio of evidence.
Yeah.
Like those small wins are so important when they start adding up.
Exactly.
So are you literally saying I should get a diary and go, these are what my goals are, and here's the evidence that I'm getting closer to it?
So I'm an absolute goal nerd. Okay. So I have my goals for the last 32 years of running my business. And I have a bucket list in one of the books. What I do at the end of each year is I actually list. I go through my Facebook, I go through LinkedIn, I go through my diary, and I list what I'm proud of. Because I've found that I've coached many women who lack confidence. And one thing I've realized is their best friends can tell them, you're amazing. Their moms can tell them, you're the best. But if they don't believe they're the best, it all is in vain. Yeah. And what I've realized is if somebody says to me, are you a good businesswoman? It doesn't matter about all the awards I've won. I know that I've set goals that were quite audacious and I've achieved them. So I know that I'm a businesswoman. I don't need an award to tell me that. Yes. The awards are great, but so it's important for us to create that portfolio of evidence. Can I do hard things? Yes, I've done very hard things. Yes. And it's not pretense and it's not aggrandizement. It's just I've done the hard things. So when somebody says, are you capable of this? Well, I've done much harder things. So when we do stuff that makes us proud, when we do stuff that challenges our perception of ourselves, that's where the magic happens. And one thing I read years ago, which really resonated with me, is the primary determinant of success is what you think of you. Doesn't matter what the world thinks of you, because inside you've got that integrity. And where there's an integrity gap, that's where problems lie. Where the world thinks you're amazing, but you think you're a fraud or you don't think you're good enough. So we build up our self-esteem one tiny little brick at a time. Tiny little brick. It's this achievement. It's this being able to say no to something that I know is not good for me, living in integrity, doing the right things. And that's, for me, how I've built my self-confidence from a young 25-year-old who really didn't have any to somebody now. And I'm not saying I'm at the pinnacle, because you work on it all the time. Absolutely. And you sometimes lose confidence. You have a knock in business. You have something happen, and then they say self-confidence grows a brick at a time, but it falls down a wall at a time. So we have to constantly be working on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I love what you say about having to feel good on the inside. Your insides and your outsides need to match.
Yes, exactly.
That's so important. Yeah. And we're just going back to you saying women are taught to be a certain way, that a lot of women are in conflict with who they really want to be. Yes. And who they're showing up as. Yeah. And that's when you get this conflict inside of you. And I'm sure you've seen it a lot with the women that you coach. What kind of behaviors are you seeing from women that are completely out of alignment with the inside and the outside? Because I really want who's ever listening to this, listen to you, tell me what those are, and them to go, I'm not alone. I also feel like that. Yeah, I also do those things. I also interrupt people because I don't like the silences, because I feel awkward. Or what are those things that show up in people that are not aligned?
So alignment with what? Alignment with values. So to me, values are like the train track. So let's just say we're journeying through life. The rails, the train tracks are the values. Where we're going is one thing. Why we're doing it is probably more important. So the first step is to have that self-awareness of what are my values. But when people are exhausted all the time, sometimes it's because they're putting on an act. If somebody's always exhausted, when somebody's resentful, they're working in a space where that would show that they're out of alignment as well. That psychological concept of cognitive dissonance, where you're doing one thing, but you just know that you shouldn't be doing it. And that leads to, I don't think you can have job satisfaction, quite honestly, when you're doing something that is so not in alignment with your top values. So what happens if you're not in alignment? You're going to not like your job. You're going to want to leave. You're going to maybe be ill because you don't want to go to work. You're not going to put in the right thing. Your performance declines. You're not going to show up as your best self. Yeah,
absolutely. I want to talk about this idea of resilience, and another conversation that we had, we were saying that entrepreneurs in particular are known to be very resilient. But I'm starting to think that resilience might not be the best characteristic to have, because it means that we're willing to tolerate a lot of pain.
Yeah.
Do you think that women are over-resilient?
Yes, I do. And I wonder sometimes, if I look at a lot of women that I know and what they can do in a day, what they put up with, what they tolerate, what they are capable of, often it's almost an inhuman amount of suffering and work to do it. A lot of women are prepared to suffer for their family and their children, because the definition of passion is to be prepared to suffer. So when you love something so much, you are prepared to suffer for that. When we start a business, it's an essential part of starting a business is that starting energy. You all remember that the late nights, the drive you have, but untamed and untapped is a problem. It's definitely a problem. A lot of people pride themselves on resilience, but what it really means is that you're probably redlining it all the time. It probably means that you're using reserves that you no longer have. It means you're putting up with stuff that you probably shouldn't be. So you're probably not really respecting your own boundaries. A lot of people in business believe, and I say in inverted commas, this is just a patch. But if I'm honest, I've probably been through patches which have lasted decades and years where you go, we just need to get through this. I have to buckle down. I have to focus. I have to give it everything. And sometimes we lose ourselves in the process. We just keep at it. So women, because they have so many hats that they wear, often are trying to be the best, if I could say, and maybe not the world's best, but their own personal best. They're not trying to be better than Mary or Jane, but they are trying to, they've set themselves up for failure because it's such a high standard of like, I want to excel at work, but I also want that great body and do the exercise. And I want to make lunch for my children and produce a hearty meal and still have personal one-on-one time with every member of the family. And oh, by the way, I'm also studying. Before they know it, something comes undone or everything comes undone. So I find I've coached quite a lot of men as well. And I find that men often are quite happy to focus on one thing. That's exciting. We can learn from that. I've never been a one thing kind of person. I've always tried to add. And last year, I actually attended the GLS, the Global Leadership Summit. And one of these speakers, I felt she was talking to me. She said, many of us suffer from leadership gluttony. We add all the time. We very seldom sift and go through that sieving process to say, let's separate what's really, really important from the stuff that's not. So it's something that I'm actually focusing on this year for myself is a year of simplification to say, what can I gently let go of so that I can focus on the stuff that's so super important. I'm tired of being resilient. I'm tired of people always looking at me and going, how do you do it? I mean, I wrote my second book was called How Does She Do It? And the answer is not well at all. Yeah. And it was pretty much giving other women permission to let down that heavy load and to stop chasing urgency, stop chasing perfection, stop competing, stop comparing, and just be kinder to themselves. Stop pedestalizing other women who seem to have it together. Every time I meet somebody who seems to have it together, upon a very quick conversation with them, it's kind of revealed that they don't.
Yeah, you learn to fake it really well. And I think in the age of social media, we see a lot of shiny things that make us go, oh, I shouldn't be feeling this bad. Look at Cindy. She's doing all these amazing things, So I think comparison is really something to be very wary of, But again, that comes back to that self-confidence, that self-love, really understanding who you are and not comparing.
Yes.
And we were talking about boundaries earlier. So it's super, super hard to set a boundary in general,
It is.
I know that I really battle with it with friends.
Yes.
And business, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Friends, rubbish.
Yeah.
And what do you tell women, especially within the work context, if they're really scared to set boundaries? First of all, what does a boundary look like? Because a lot of people don't even know, they're so used to saying yes all the time. They don't even know what a boundary looks like. So maybe we should define what does a boundary or a cross boundary look like at work, and how do we rectify it in a way that's not going to give us a heart attack while we're doing it? Because as women, we want to please, and it's scary. The boundary conversation is scary. We think the moment we put that in, oh my gosh, then I'm not a hard worker. Then they think I'm not going to get that promotion. Let's chat about that, because I feel that is such a myth.
It is a complete myth. You're touching on my really weak underbelly here, because I would very quickly and easily say. It's about establishing a line in the sand and saying, I don't do this after this time, or I won't do this. But then life happens. Let's be honest, a lot of us who don't have good boundaries, when we try to put in a boundary, we go like scorched earth policy, and then we just go no. And then people look at us and go, who are you? I thought you were a nice person. Sometimes we've got to read the room. We've got to work out what is a strategic yes, but then also what's a no. So it might be easy to say, this year, I've started a new year. I'm no longer working after 5 o'clock. I leave the office by 5. But there are going to be exceptions. Yeah. But we've got to ask ourselves, is this exception becoming the norm? Yeah. And a lot of the times, we can work on our boundaries by just communicating. And so I can do this, but I can't do that. Or managing up. A lot of it in the workplace is managing up. So let's just say your boss says, I need this tomorrow, it's urgent. And to have the courage to say, I'm working on, I get you, I understand, I'm working on this other thing. Would it be possible to rather prioritize your other urgent thing now? And then is it okay if I extend that deadline out? A lot of the times we feel like we can't negotiate. So we go, I have to say yes, whereas maybe it's a case of not now, or I can do it, but a lot of the times we don't give ourselves permission to have that conversation. So it's either a blanket no, or it's a weak crumbling yes, and we get resentful. And it's very hard with friends. I've got so many amazing friends, and they'll say things like, we need to get together. And I've also realized that there's only so many social hours in a month, and we also have social batteries. So sometimes it's fine to say to a friend, I'm booked out for the rest of the month, but I'd love to catch up next month. Or let's just get on a quick call and chat. So it's hard when everybody wants a piece of you. That's where honesty comes in as well, to say to somebody, listen, I'm really prioritizing my health at the moment, so I can't go out for wine, or I'm in a little patch where I am just really focusing on building up my resilience, or filling up my own cup, and I'm actually February is my month of isolation and solitude and stillness and silence, because that's really what I need right now. And when you respect yourself, people start respecting you. And one of the questions I've often asked women leaders is, would you rather be liked or respected? And gosh, I've made that mistake so many times of buckling to somebody's cheeky request, or buckling to what people want of me because I want to be liked. Yeah. And really the only real path that we can focus on is respect. Like, I'd love to do that, but I can't. My diary is completely full. And it's very hard to do that, because I will make that commitment to myself, and I find I'll get an email from somebody and asking me something immediately. It's almost like I'm being tested. And they'll say, can you do that? Let's just say I've said to myself, for the rest of the month, I cannot take any more meetings. I'm actually overloaded. And then somebody asks you about something, and it's attractive. I read something recently that it says, the secret to success is not saying no to the things you don't want to do, but saying no to the things you do want to do. Because a lot of us want to do a lot of things, and the FOMO is real. To be able to say, well, I remember my mentor saying something. He said, you will not die from starvation from too few opportunities. You're more likely to die of indigestion from too many. And that's such a great permission to say, I don't have to be it all, do it all, and have it all now. My encouragement to busy women and stressed out women is to kind of look at your life as seasons. 2026, let's just say, is 1 year. So maybe this is a season for your studying, or this is a season for your soul, or this is a season for reading all those books next to your bed. So sometimes we feel if I say no, it might not happen again, but it will happen again, or maybe something better will happen.
Or you won't pass you by.
Exactly,
Exactly.
exactly.
I love what you said about communication, but also about being very clear on what you're doing and expressing that to people. We really need to understand that we need to teach people how to treat us.
Yeah.
It's a skill to be able to say, hey, this is what I actually need from you right now, because a lot of us live in our own heads, where we go, I really wish Cindy would asked me for coffee. I'd asked her that one time and she's ignoring me now, and it's like, meanwhile, you've actually had a crisis, or
exactly.
you haven't slept because you've been sick, or there could be a million reasons, but we get into our own heads about something when we can actually just ask the questions, and or you didn't do something you did something that I didn't like. And you say, Cindy, I really didn't like that you made that joke about my shoes the other day. It hurts my feelings. I'm pretty sure that you're not going to say something about my shoes again,
exactly.
But I mean, that might just be something that you think is funny and is endearing. So, I love that about communication. And I actually had an incident that happened to me the last few days where something happened on her side and she ignored me for 4 days. And I was shocked by this because here's this person still posting on social media. It's something that I urgently needed her to get back to me on. And there was a reason why she wasn't responding to a certain thing, but it made it so much worse by not communicating.
Absolutely. A lot of us as women, we have expectations of other people. The happiest people I know have quite low expectations of others. The other thing I've realized is that so often when we're going through a tough time or we've got an urgent deadline, we forget that other people are not living in a vacuum. People are going through their own things. And somebody might have the capacity to post on Facebook. It might be their outlet. It might be a stress relief. Or maybe there's a reason they feel that they need to post to show the world that they're okay. Meanwhile, they're not. And I've realized that so often we need to understand that, so I'm going through a bad time. My friend didn't reach out to me. I can't believe it. This is the worst week of my life. But did I tell her? Did I ask? Did I take a moment to say, well, maybe this could be her worst week of her life or the second worst week. We can't give what we don't have. And so to have that compassion for other people, to go, there must be a reason. And that's why we have relationships, because relationships means we create a reservoir of trust. So you're my friend. I'm going through the worst week of my life. You don't reach out, it's radio silence. And instead of me going, oh, I can't believe it, you don't care, it's to have that reservoir of trust now to say, and to use that and to say, there must be a reason, because I know she's not like that. I know she is a caring, kind person. Maybe when I'm ready and I'm out of my bad week or bad situation, I'll reach out and check in on her, because so often we personalize our own grief or trauma or stressful time, and we can't imagine anyone else's pain as high as ours.
It sounds like what you're saying is that we should really approach things with curiosity. Instead of accusations or preconceived ideas about things, because when you look at things with curiosity, it's because you want to find out more information about something. And when we're getting angry, what I'm hearing you say is that it could not be the thing that you think it is, So, and again, it just all comes back to communication. So how can we help women communicate better and be better leaders in their own life? Because you talk a lot about self-leadership. So what does that practically look like in terms of communication? Are there any practical tools that women can use to help them communicate in a way that's going to land correctly?
There's probably so many. I'm just thinking of, it's so important to be an active listener. So you might be a leader and somebody in your team, you go, how are you? And they go, fine, but you can see they're not. There's such an incongruence between their face, their words, their body language, and the word fine. And so often we accept that because we're in a rush. So sometimes to slow down, to go ask the right questions. Because if I say, how are you? I'm opening the door to a superficial answer. But if I went up to you and said, Laura, I've noticed you have lost your spark. How are you really? It's very hard for you to go, I'm fine, or whatever it is. or how can I support you better? and then listen to the answer.
Yeah.
And not put the words in, because so often we become very uncomfortable with silence. Give people a moment and pick out timing, because I meet you on the escalator. That's not the time to ask you. So to pick out timing, to respect another person's space, give them time and let them know that we are available to them, to respect confidentiality. Because if I'm saying to you, I notice something, but I'm going to tell everyone in our friendship circle, you're not going to share that with me. So what has to start is that foundation of respect, confidentiality, and integrity. So if somebody is a woman who says, I haven't always been that person, I've engaged in too much gossip, I've been a bit shallow and superficial, well, maybe now's the time to elevate and to say, from now on, I will no longer participate, because the leader I want to be isn't that person. Because as you say, we teach people how to treat us. And if I'm always sharing the gossip, no one's going to come to me as a leader with deep stuff. One of the best things we can do as a leader is to be vulnerable and to share as well. So let somebody, so often we put those masks on and we look so capable, the power dressing, but in terms of our body language as well. And to let people know, sure, I'm under pressure at the moment and I'm struggling with this, because the minute you do, there's the permission for everyone else to go, okay, I can take a breath. So often what we're doing is we're like little soldiers, all like dressed up and all bluffing, all pretending and all playing a game. The leader needs to create the vulnerable space. It's unfair to ask a team member to do that. So to check in and to say, are we checking in with the team? Sometimes we check in meetings and we go, how are you out of 5? Or pick one word opener, the end of a meeting, one word closer. And often that word can say so much about people, about where they're at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not a lot of pressure. Everybody hates it when it's like, tell us something about yourself to the circle of people you don't know. I was like, oh my goodness, what am I going to say? And but that one word is actually, that's quite cool.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
You're like happy, calm, angry.
But if somebody walks in and says, I'm absolutely shattered, then maybe that's the thing to say, can we pause the meeting? Maybe take that person out, or keep an eye on them and chat to them afterwards and go, that was quite an emotional word. Are you okay? And to act on it. Because if somebody says, I'm shattered, let's just say, or grief-stricken, and you go, oh, okay, and you don't follow up, then it shows that you don't care. And then another element of leadership, which we haven't really spoken about, is trust. Trust, if you've got a leader you don't trust because they lack integrity, or because they've never had your back, or because they go back on their word, that's something we as women can really, really work on, or should work on, that people feel safe with us, create that psychological safety, and also just that they trust that if they tell you something, that you will act on it appropriately, that it won't go too far beyond the people that need to know about it, and that your word is your bond. That's an important element of leadership as well.
That trust is fundamental in everything that you do, you know. I think it starts with yourself and at home, and definitely leaks into work. There was this article, or this woman, she was some top CEO that said, I fired, or I didn't hire somebody because I found out they cheated on their husband.
Okay.
Because it was very much like, if I know that you're not a trustworthy person. If you're going to betray the person that you love the most in this world, how can I trust you with my business?
Exactly. And
there was quite a lot of noise around that. You know, there was. I'm not saying what she did was right or wrong at all. I don't have an opinion on it. It was just more around that idea of trust and how important it was to her as a leader of this really big company. And I want to know from you how you can cultivate more trust in your team members and with yourself, because obviously it all starts with you.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, you did mention sticking to your word, for example. Yeah. I mean, that sounds small, but I would say it's probably one of the biggest ones.
We live in a world where it's so easy to let yourself off the hook. Oh, I wasn't feeling right. Nobody saw. It's okay. It was just a little slip up or something like that. So holding yourself to a high standard. If you are a leader, you can't hold others to a high standard if there's massive incongruence. If you're expecting your staff to be model citizens and you yourself are not one. It's about really understanding what your principles are and going, these are non-negotiable things. Boundaries might be permeable but your principles should be quite rock solid. And it's like, what am I prepared to tolerate? There's so many things that we can do. It's an ongoing struggle that women have to jump through hoops. Like a male leader is always more popular than a female leader if they're the same kind of person. A lot of women, it's almost like they've got to. This obstacle happens before you walk in the room. You've just been hired at ABC company, and you're Hardy, and then Howard's been hired. Now, like why do you have to work harder? But you do, because there's this fundamental aversion to female leaders.
So we've been talking a lot about how to show up personally. I want to talk about women leaders in particular. We've also covered a little bit about male leaders, female leaders, and the differences between them. We spoke about likability earlier, and how women have these traits as a leader, but then they're seen as masculine, and they're not seen as very likable. Why do you think that women feel that they have to be so different to who they really are as leaders? Because a lot of the time, women who have to take on these leadership qualities, traditional leadership qualities, are seen as very unlikable. So you can't be the boss and be the sweet, lovely lady that I want to take to tea. There seems like this really big divide between who women want to be as leaders and who they're expected to be.
Absolutely. It takes me back to Sheryl Sandberg's book, Lean In. And it was so fascinating. There was the Howard Hardy study. So they took a group of, I think, business students, and they divided them into groups, and they asked the students what they thought of Howard. Howard was a business leader, and they described Howard, 39 years old. And then this group was asked, here's Hardy. What do you think of Hardy? Same qualities, everything. And what was interesting is people found Howard more appealing and more popular and more likable than Hardy. Not just the men, it was also the women. So that was quite an interesting. A lot of women in leadership have to overcome that unconscious bias against them. So a lot of people will make an assumption before you've even walked in the room. If you're a female leader, there's sometimes this perception, this prickliness that, are you going to be aggressive? Are you going to be cold? Are you going to be controlling? I own a recruitment company, and I've often interviewed people who say, I don't want to work for a female boss. And that's often females.
Females don't want to work
for a female boss. I've had that from many candidates over the many years that I've been in business. So sometimes the devil wears Prada is probably to blame for a lot of the stereotypes. And there are stereotypes. So we talk about diversity and inclusion, but when companies are used to having male leaders and suddenly they have a female leader in the group, there's a lot of stereotypes and biases against that person in terms of their role. So people are looking at that person through a lens that's maybe not very forgiving and maybe is quite judgmental and almost waiting for the person to show that they're not likable or not nice or not kind, whatever it is. So sometimes it's doubly hard for women to lead well and to enjoy the journey because they've got support. So it is harder for women to land a leadership role in a big company and have an experience of being supported, liked, trusted. They have to earn it, and it's a little bit harder than for men, all things being equal.
Absolutely. And I've heard about that study before, actually, and there was a lot of commentary around it because the girl on girl hate is actually a real thing.
Yeah.
We do compete against each other, and maybe it's because this is new.
Yeah.
For us. We don't know how to behave.
Yeah. We only compete when there are scarce resources or when we perceive there to be scarce resources. So for women in a big corporate, there aren't that many places at the top. So people are jostling for position. There's a scarcity mindset. When we have an abundance mindset where we say we all win, it's a lot easier to be kind, generous, non-judgmental.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I suppose the challenge is, how do we get that abundance mindset into workplaces, into our own workplaces, into ourselves? Because if I have an abundance mindset, your winning doesn't detract from me. So that's probably one of the biggest challenges going forward. Yeah.
The importance of your module in the Lion Women Blueprint course is really making women aware of these biases that are very much there. So we can actually be aware of them, because we don't have a rule book for how to actually be in these positions.
Yeah.
This is all so new to us. So it's really great to be aware of the biases, and then to also understand, if I am a leader, or if I'm wanting to become a leader or get into management roles, what skills do I need to start learning now so I don't get affected by these biases, or personally, I don't feel them personally, or that I can show up in a way that's not going to drive those biases further, yet still be competitive within the space? I know that's a tough question, because it needs to be a balance, but are skills that we are needing to learn as we're moving up the ranks. What do you think are the most important skills for women in particular to learn?
So one of them is to lose the oversensitivity that we sometimes have, and not being in a position to not personalize feedback, not personalize how people are. It's also about building up our own self-confidence. As I mentioned earlier, it is important, because if I'm confident and know who I am, I'm very clear on what I stand for and who I am, it's a lot easier to deal with possible criticism, feedback that might not be so constructive. Yes. And it's important to build relationships with people so that they can see the real me. You build relationships with time. Often women are time pressed, so they don't have time to meet for drinks after work or chat around the water cooler. And sometimes they can be too task orientated. So maybe choosing when I'm going to be task orientated, when I'm going to be people focused, so that people can see the real me, because you only really get to know somebody by spending time with them. So that's the conundrum that women often face. If I've got 8 hours at the office, I've got to rush home to all my household duties or my home duties. My other job starts the minute I leave. So I can be a little bit, so often what we do is we shortchange people. And we're talking about leading people. It's about building those reservoirs of trust. And I'm a big fan of that emotional bank account of everyone you meet. How do I make a deposit? Because you can't make a withdrawal. So by helping people win, by checking in on them, by advocating for other women as well in the workplace, there's so many things we can do. It takes an intentional approach. And I'm not talking about strategies, but I'm talking about, how do I show up? How do I become a leader that is compelling, that is inspiring, that is approachable? And it's a lot of different behaviors. And so often what we do is when we under time pressure and we feel things are urgent, we often resort to behavior that is not leader-like. It's very much task-focused, command and control, get things done, urgent. And we lose our personality. We lose our people. Yes, exactly. So if we can make space and it's even that doctor that spends an extra 10 seconds with a patient just to touch their arm and to look at them in the eye and say, just make them feel comfortable. They've done research on surgeons and doctors, and those who do spend a few seconds more have far less lawsuits for malpractice or what have you. And so often we as leaders, as female leaders, need to slow it down. When every instinct in us says rush, get more done, we're busy. It's funny, in my business, we've banned the word busy last year because we're all busy. Yeah. We don't need to reinforce that. So I feel that a lot of women, if they were less busy, they would be more approachable. They'd be able to. So it's almost like it feels like it's counterintuitive, but the busier you are, the slower you become. Slow it down, be present. So when somebody is there. I mean, the biggest gift you can give anyone is your attention. So if somebody says, I need to speak to you, come sit down. I've got all the time in the world, even though you don't. And you listen. Those are gifts we give to people. And so often we don't do that. Somebody says, have you got a minute? And you're like, stand in line. And obviously knowing also the boundaries, because some people will take those 10 minutes every day. And if you've got a big team, you're going to run out of time. But knowing when to say yes and no. And when you say yes, instead of being resentful and saying, what do you want? Or kind of slowing it down, calming it down, and telling your face that you actually are paying attention as well. So yeah, and I've been guilty of all of those things. When people say, have you got a minute? Sure. And you don't. And
you're not really there when you're speaking to them.
And you're like, or you're going like, I'm so sorry to cut you short, but I have to rush. And then the person's like bared their soul and now you've left them hanging. Yes. So it all comes down to prioritizing. Sometimes it's like, okay, I get the feeling that this person really needs my time, which means that I might have to delegate something. I might have to let a ball drop. We women are not good at letting balls drop. We're very scared. Not every ball is made of glass. Sometimes we can let something drop, lower our standards. It's one of the instant, not just expectations, but standards sometimes. And obviously not every job allows that. If you're a plastic surgeon, like have high standards, but certain things we overinvest in certain things because we want things to be perfect. Because why? Because we're not enough. Sometimes we've got to work on being enough so that we know when to give enough to what. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Cindy, thank you so much. That's all we have time for today. We're so excited to have you on the Lion Women Blueprint because I just think this is such an important topic.
Thank you.
And yeah, thank you so much for your time. It was really fascinating.
Thank you. It's been wonderful to be here. I really appreciate the opportunity.